we're going to demonstrate another way to lower a climber. And this is a method that also has some advantages of getting your rappel rope threaded through the rappel rings so you're ready to rappel. So this is the kind of thing that we do at the top of a climb where we've brought our climber up, and then we want to get our rope set up through the rappel rings. So we've got our rappel rings up here. I'm still clove hitching the anchor. I've had Selah put on her tether. So she's already locked into the anchor so we could get one end of the rope free. And so here, I'm going to thread the rope through the anchor just like we normally would for a rappel. And then I'm going to have her tie in. So she's going to tie in on that end. Now while she's tying in, I can start setting this up. And basically what we're going to do here is we're going to lower our climber off of a redirected plate. Now, every time I set this up, I always have to kind of like just look and be like, okay, which direction do I want this? So, look at your device. Okay, so insert that rope. So you got your climber side correctly. And then my brake side is going up through the rings. So when we lower with a plate device like an ATC, we always want to have that brake strand lowered. Have that brake strand redirected with a locking carabiner. Typically, here we're using the rappel rings off the anchor. That serves as our redirect. And then as I lower Selah, that's also going to make it so that our rope is run through the rappel rings. When she gets down to the ground or maybe down to the next belay and anchors herself, I'm going to know that one end of the rope is already down at that anchor and it's closed then. Then what I'll be able to do is like put myself on rappel. You do need to consider when you do this if these are like solid rappel rings and not, and we want solid like thick steel rappel rings as opposed to the rolled aluminum lightweight rings. And what I'll do is I'll post a picture on Canvas so you can see the difference side by side of those different types of rappel rings. So here I've got, again, Selah is tied in, threaded through the plate device, and then the brake strand is going up through the rings. When we lower, we're going to use a third hand friction hitch as a backup. So here, I'm going to put on an auto block. One thing that's really key about doing any of these lowers is I've got the rope stacked nicely at my feet. It's ready to feed out smooth. Make sure my third hand will work. And again, before I'm going to do this, I'm going to just give a final double check here. Okay, before I have Selah untether. She's got a rope that's tight, and here I'm going to just start to belay her up. Once I pull up here, let's get this nice and tight. You'll hear us say, especially when we get into rappelling things, to test it before you trust it. So here, got her set up there. Try to get my rope out of the way so you can see this. With a redirected plate, and it's redirected so it's through the rappel rings. Now, Selah can go ahead and unclip. You ready? Okay, and I'm going to lower her down the climb. Okay, so there she goes down the climb. And again, once she's on the ground or at that next anchor, I'm going to know that that end is at the anchor. And now I've got my rope threaded through the rings. So now I can transition off of the anchor and onto the rappel in whatever fashion I'm going to do. I might do a counterbalance rappel off her weight if I wanted to, just on a single strand. That's a counterbalance rappel we'll deal with in another lesson. Or I could just set up a traditional 2-rope rappel with my ATC style device. So that's a little trick there. It can be a really handy thing. And as you'll hear us talk about as we get into rappelling, as well as what we've already done with lowers, is sometimes there's great advantage to lowering your climber. Maybe it's just quicker and easier. You don't have to worry about the wind blowing the end of the rope as you throw it down. There can be a bunch of advantages just to lowering your climber. And I do this with my friends and my clients. I do this all the time. So don't think it's just some guide's trick or some trick that you would only use with an inexperienced climber. I've done it plenty of times with an experienced partner that I'm climbing with as just an efficient way to get the rope down and get a person down with it. So there you go.